certain question is asked, I start shaking, and I wonder, oh my God, am I going to get called in again?
Tonight, the Mohawks of Akwesasne push for better treatment by Canada's Border Service Agency.
It's something that we need to fight for because this is an age-old culture and tradition that are at stake here.
The Gwichin lobby to save parts of their northern territory from American oil exploration.
His legacy will be really to creating a better quality of life for Mi'kmaq people.
And Grand Chief Ben Sylliboy is laid to rest. Good evening. Welcome to APTN National News. I'm Juanita Tautungi. The daily commute to work for many Akwesasne residents straddling both borders is anything but easy. But a new reporting mechanism being proposed could shorten border lines and minimize the headache. Here's Annette Francis with more on that story.
Every day, April Thompson commutes from the American border to the Canadian border in Cornwall, Ontario. 4 years ago, she was charged with aiding and abetting.
It's all because I didn't check in right away. So what they wanted me to do is drive to Cornwall, check in, bring her back to the island, and then go back to Cornwall to work.
Thompson was charged because she didn't report that she dropped her daughter off on Cornwall Island before reporting with her at the port of entry.
For 2 years, I was in court with the outcome of being found guilty.
It's a routine that commuters have faced every day for the past 8 years. Back in 2009, Akwesasne residents expressed their concerns over armed border guards. That prompted guards to abandon their post on the island, leaving Mohawk territory.
Well, ever since 2009, when Canada Customs decided to relocate to the city of Cornwall, we have been calling on the Government of Canada, CBSA, to establish some sort of alternative reporting mechanism, which we've seen made available to other locations within the country.
According to Grand Chief Benedict, a remote check-in is now being considered. And if it's approved, wait times at the Cornwall port of entry would be shortened.
Reporting stations would be placed here on Cornwall Island for residents traveling in from other parts of the community would be able to stop in instead of driving into the city of Cornwall. They would be processed here electronically through a two-way communication system with an officer in the city of Cornwall.
It's a move that April Thompson supports.
Just going through that, even now, going through customs, having to check in and going through, I get, if a certain question is asked, I start shaking, and I wonder, oh my God, am I going to get called in again? What's going to happen?
In a written statement, the Canada Border Services Agency says the exact location and who are eligible to participate have not been finalized. Annette Francis, APTN National News, Akwesasne, Mohawk Territory.
And we would like to hear what you have to say about this or any other story. Here's how to contact us. Send an email to news@aptn.ca, like our APTN National News Facebook page. Follow us on Twitter @APTN News or go to our website aptnnews.ca. The British Columbia government has approved the Site C hydroelectric dam. The NDP government had been considering killing the dam, which will flood much of the Peace River Valley and displace many Indigenous communities. Tina House is in Victoria with this update.
Thank you. I'm standing outside of the BC legislature where just hours ago, Premier John Horgan approved the Site C Dam in northeast BC. Joining me today is Dr. Stephen Gray. Dr. Stephen Gray, how did you get involved with this fight against Site C?
Well, I became involved in this a number of years ago with concern about a program of reconciliation with First Nations people in British Columbia. We traveled up to the Peace River and met with people from the West Mobility First Nations and Prophet River First Nation and learned firsthand about their concerns about the dam and their consideration that this was a violation of their treaty rights.
And what are your thoughts on the decision today?
Well, I'm appalled with the decision, to be honest. It's kind of like the back room is where the decision was made, and the First Nations were excluded from the decision-making process, and very disappointed by it. Beyond that, of course, is a huge cost associated with this project that will land on the in the hands of the taxpayers maybe not tomorrow, but as the years go forward, we're very concerned about that impact.
Absolutely. And one of the decisions that Premier Horgan mentioned today was the project began at $8.9 billion. That then ballooned to $10.7 billion. And at the end of the day, that could even actually go even further than that. He was saying that it's the cost of taxpayers at the end of the day. The reason is why it would cost more to stop the project than to continue. Well, what do you think about that statement that he made?
Well, our review of the numbers and what we saw from the BC Utilities Commission, I think, said that if we were to stop this project now, we'd actually be saving money. If we proceed to the end of this, the effect on hydro rates and the effect on the taxpayers will be much, much greater. We're talking billions and billions of dollars more to finish this project. And we don't need the electricity. That's the saddest thing about this whole thing. We could build out as and when we need electricity with renewables like wind. BC Hydro tells us that we have the wind potential in this province for 4 Site Cs. Don't need to build a dam. Let's do this in a proper and progressive way.
Okay, so the fight from your organization as well as the landowners is not over yet. Is that what you're saying?
It's not over yet. We're pulling together an accountability summit in Vancouver on January 20th and 21. Our intention is to meet there and talk about the decision. We'll be inviting NDP rank and file and members, all kinds of people from all kinds of parties to come and talk about this. And we're inviting the Premier and Cabinet Ministers to come and explain the decision so we can talk about where we go from here, both in terms of the Site C dam and stopping it, and accountability of government.
Dr. Gray, thank you very much for joining us today. Appreciate that.
Thank you kindly, Tina.
Back to you in studio.
Last week, Indigenous groups from the North traveled to Washington, D.C. to lobby against the U.S. tax bill. That bill will allow fossil fuel development in the Arctic National Wildlife Refuge, a protected area on Alaska's Arctic coast which has cultural and spiritual significance for the Gwichin Nation. Shirley McLean has more.
Jeffrey Peter just came back from Washington, D.C. The Vuntut Gwichin man was part of the delegation to lobby against the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act.
Right now, the Arctic Refuge is being tied to a tax bill.
The bill is touted to shrink taxes for American companies and drive millions back into the U.S. economy. But tucked into the bill is a proposal to open up parts of the Alaska National Wildlife Refuge on Alaska's North Slope to oil and gas drilling.
Right now, it's just being pushed through as part of a tax bill where it's not being debated on. It doesn't need as much scrutiny in order to pass.
The refuge has been closed to oil exploration since 1980. The Gwichin people in Alaska, Yukon, and Northwest Territories have lobbied hard since then to keep the area protected because it's the birthing grounds for the porcupine caribou herd, a herd that has shaped the Gwichin for generations.
It's something that we need to fight for because this is an age-old culture and tradition that are at stake here, and we want the right to be able to pass that culture on to our future generations.
U.S. Senators voted 51 to 49 to pass the act. Alaska's Republican Senator Dan Sullivan says allowing development in the coastal plain is a win for Alaska and a win for the nation. It will create thousands of good-paying jobs, restore faith in our economy, and drive investments in our communities. Peter says the Gwichin have the right to pass on their knowledge and traditions.
We've evolved with the caribou, and we rely on them for our physical sustenance and for our spiritual well-being. And if their numbers go down, we're going to see that firsthand in the health of our community.
The Gwichin still have some time to lobby. The House and Senate versions of the tax bill are different and need to be reconciled before President Trump can sign it, which the president has said he hopes to sign by the end of the year. Peter says if the bill becomes law, most likely the next steps taken will be a legal battle. Shirley McLean, APTN National News, Whitehorse.
Some sad news to share with you after the break. The leader of the Mi'kmaq Grand Council was laid to rest over the weekend, Grand Chief Ben Sylliboy, but we'll also share some of his legacy. Stay with us. Here's a look at tomorrow's weather forecast. A mix of sun and cloud for St. John's tomorrow, reaching a high of 2 degrees. Snow in Halifax and a high of 4. Snow in Inukjuak as well and -18. Sun in Kuujjuaq and -15. A mix of sun and cloud in Val-d'Or and -15. Snow in Quebec City and -6. -6 on the way for Peterborough, -2 in Toronto. Big Trout Lake, you'll reach -21 tomorrow under a mix of sun and cloud. Sunny and -14 in Thunder Bay. Cold in Churchill tomorrow, reaching a high of -24 under sunny skies. Thompson, snow and -16. -9 in Gimli and Winnipeg, -3 in Brandon. In Saskatoon, it'll be sunny and 5 degrees, 4 degrees in North Battleford, -9 and cloudy in Stony Rapids, and 2 degrees is expected in La Ronge. Welcome back. On Saturday, the leader of the Mi'kmaq Grand Council was laid to rest. The late Grand Chief Ben Sylliboy was a humble, soft-spoken, well-respected elder and residential school survivor. His lifelong commitment to the Mi'kmaq Nation was honored at a funeral service in Cape Breton. Justin Brake brings us the story.
And salute.
Family, friends, and leaders came from all over Mi'kma'ki and beyond to honor the life and legacy of Ben Sylliboy.
He was the face of who we are, and now with him being gone, I think it leaves a tremendous void. And he was also a wonderful human being too, eh? You know, good father, good husband, good grandfather, good uncle.
Sylliboy was the Grand Chief of the Sante Mawiomi, the Mi'kmaq Nation's traditional Grand Council. He died on November 30th at the age of 76. As a child, Sylliboy attended residential school and then battled tuberculosis. Active in his home community of Wegohoma, he was a respected elder.
He was all about unity, working together. He was all about rights, treaty rights. He was focusing on nationhood, sovereignty, jurisdiction. It's a big loss. His legacy will be really to creating a better quality of life for Mi'kmaq people, and basically for all First Nations people.
He was a good family man. He was. I didn't see him as a chief. I always seen him as Uncle Ben, you know. And he was always nice. He was a nice guy, you know. Loved his church, loved their community, loved his people.
In the late 1960s, Sylliboy was chosen as a Gepton for the Grand Council. Soon after, he was elected to Wegohoma Band Council, where he served 9 terms. In the early 90s, he became Sante Mawiomi Grand Chief, head of state for the Mi'kmaq Nation.
And Grand Chief made sure that everybody is heard, and that's the Mi'kmaq way. You know, no one is above anybody else, and that's why when I gave thanks to the fact that his family loaned us him for a number of years for this position.
I said, Dad, what's something that you would want me to teach our students? This is 2007, huh? And regain the language, make relationships, and learn the traditional knowledge. He works so hard in our community, and to see the honor that's given to him, I say he's looking down upon us, and to see all these people, it's really emotional to see.
Justin Brake, APTN National News, Wegohoma First Nation, Nova Scotia.
Edith Cloutier is this year's recipient of Quebec's 2016 Justice Award. Cloutier is well known for her commitment to the well-being of urban Aboriginal people. Dennis Ward spoke to her earlier from Val-d'Or.
Edith, thanks for joining us and congratulations. What does this award mean for you?
Well, actually, this award is about justice. It's about sharing this with all of my colleagues here at the Friendship Center who are working at the mission of this Friendship Center, which is to improve the quality of life, to make sure that we are there with our people to defend our rights. But it's also a tribute for me to the Indigenous women of Val-d'Or that spoke out 2 years ago. And with their courage, they were able to raise issues around injustice that Indigenous women are living. So for me, it's important to share this recognition with those women and to sort of give a tribute to those women and to their courage.
Edith, what role do you feel you may have played in getting the Quebec Public Inquiry off the ground?
Getting a public inquiry, it's a collective of people, and I mentioned it yesterday when I received the award that this is not a question of one person. It's first was because we had a group of women that, with their courage, came out and raised very important issues around abuse, police authorities. So that was a beginning of maybe getting a grasp of all of those injustice that Indigenous women are living, but also all the mobilization of the First Nation leadership, the Cree Nation, the Anishinaabe Nation. Once all of this was revealed publicly, pulled together as one, and to clearly put pressure on the political level so that the justice can be made. Also, the fact that the government needed to recognize that harm has been done, and the recognition of the truth. And the truth are those that came out from the voices of those women of Val-d'Or, and now we see it at a broader level, because last week there was the national inquiry on Indigenous women that came to Val-d'Or, and we were able to hear other testimonies around injustice of Indigenous women, and they were saying, well, we now find the courage to speak out because of what we heard from our sisters in Val-d'Or.
Edith, what do you feel it's going to take to see some reconciliation between nations?
Well, reconciliation, and I think I'm not the only one that says it, but we first need to hear the truth. And to hear the truth, once it's said, though it hurts, then once they're said and heard, we need to recognize the harm that was done. And then once recognition is done, be it by the part of government and now at a more broader society level, then we can start working towards the path of reconciliation. So reconciliation is about recognizing, but it's also about hearing those truth, and to just from there find a path, a common path on which we can walk and be comfortable and recognize each one's value in all of this redesigning, redefining the society of today that we want.
Edith, we're going to have to leave it there, but thanks again for joining us, and again, congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you.
Coming up after the break, we'll introduce you to an Inuk man who was forced to relocate from his home more than 60 years ago. Stay with us.
Here's the rest of your Tuesday weather forecast. In high levels, sunny and 0. Peace River, sunny and 3 degrees. Cloudy in Lethbridge tomorrow and 14 degrees. Sunny and 10 degrees in Medicine Hat. Over to BC, 0 in Kamloops and Penticton, 8 degrees in Vancouver. Fort St. John, sunny and 6. Smithers, cloudy and -2. -2 as well in Watson Lake, Yukon. -5 in Dawson City. In the NWT, Yellowknife will get to -10 tomorrow. -8 in Fort Resolution, -5 in Wauti. Sunny and -17 in Sax Harbor, -11 and snow in Tuktoyaktuk. Sunny and cloud across western and central Nunavut, -26 in Upvet and -27 in Well Cove. Resolute Bay will get to -20 degrees, and -19 degrees is expected in Igloolik.
A new exhibit exploring 150 years of Canada's human rights history recently opened at the Canadian Museum for Human Rights in Winnipeg. The exhibit examines 33 different stories. Amongst those is the history of a group of Inuit who were forcibly relocated more than 60 years ago. Brittany Hobson caught up with one of the last remaining survivors of the relocation and brings us this.
David Sakwa drums to a recording of one of his late father's songs. It's a song his father started, but Sakwa finished. That's because a forced relocation almost 70 years ago nearly wiped out a small group of Inuit.
We were moved just like that. You go out your tent, the plane is waiting, and away we went.
In 1949, the Ahermut of Anadai Lake were one of the communities forced to move by the Canadian government. They were relocated 5 times before finally settling in what is now known as Arviat. Sakwa was 5 years old when he had to move during the second relocation to Hennock Lake.
The government have tent for us, wall tents with a bit of ration in each tent. When the food ran out, then everyone started to wonder where they're going to get their food for the next day for their families.
But the sad irony behind the relocation, the government at the time believed hunting opportunities in the area were scarce.
All Inuit all listen to the white man, whether it's a priest, welfare worker, RCMP, or any white man. If they told you to leave, you leave, and if they signal you like this, you come. If they want to hit you, they can hit you.
In 1985, some Ahermut went back to Anadai Lake for the last time. For many, it was the first time they were able to practice their culture since the move.
We were told almost like you have to change right now. You have forgive your Inukness, leave your culture, leave your language outside the door. Here you only use English.
But this wasn't the only loss for the community. Sakwa estimates there are less than 30 living survivors.
My folks and other Ahermut trade artifacts like that to radio personnel.
The story of the Ahermut is now featured in a new exhibit at the Canadian Museum for Human Rights called Rites of Passage, Canada at 150. Using mediums like oral interviews, television, and social media, the exhibit explores key moments in Canada's human rights history.
And we really wanted to stress the idea of multiple perspectives, lots of different stories, and fundamentally of Indigenous peoples' original occupancy and rights in this place.
Sakwa lent old artifacts such as antler carvings and a toy canoe to help tell his people's story.
No, they are here for Canada and the world to see, so it was pretty good.
Brittany Hobson, APTN National News, Winnipeg.
Definitely a must-see if you are in Winnipeg. Well, that's all the time we have for APTN National News tonight. Do join us again tomorrow, and do check out our website, aptnnews.ca. I'm Juanita Tautungi. Have a good evening. Davao buhi.